Hello, Deep Mindfulness Collective. My name is Janusz, and this is the Joy of Being AliveStream. Welcome, folks. Darren, good to see you. I think more people need to press the notifications bell. I'm always here first. Well, I'm glad you're here, Darren. It's good to see you. And folks will roll in as they roll in, and it happens. Maybe I should tell more people that to hit that notification bell. I'd be curious because I don't get the notifications because it's my channel, but I'm guessing it notifies you when we go live. I was thinking about using a different system and actually having a text message thing if people wanted to get a text message when we go live. Maybe I'll do that one day. Let's see here. How's the audio? Any problems with the audio? I'm getting a signal that's a little low, so I'm going to change it just a bit. Excellent. Welcome, folks, as people are rolling in. Okay, check. I'm going to go up. Check. Hello, check. This is the sound of my audio. Hello, check. Okay, that's pretty good. Hello, check. Okay, that's a little better. So hopefully that's not blowing out anyone's eardrums. This is the sound of my voice, and I'm very happy that we're here together today with the Joy of Being AliveStream. And as folks are rolling in, just let us know where you're coming from. It would be delightful to see you here and connect. Oops. So today we're going to be continuing our theme around metta practice and doing loving kindness practice in a particular way that is related to some of my studies in Burma. And recently we've been working with the metta practice being drawn from us by a harmless or being that is, what's the other word I'm looking for? Sometimes I just lose words on this live stream and I gotta just work it out. So a harmless being. We're going to allow our awareness to be drawn to this harmless being. And that's what we've been working on, and we'll have an extension of that today. And today's actually going to be the last day for a little while of our metta practice. So that'll be fun. In the next couple days, we'll be doing a practice that is not metta. And I want to give folks a little bit of a warning here. In the future, in July, I'm going to have to decide what the schedule is because my wedding is on July 13th. And while I would like to imagine that I would have all the time in the world and would be able to make it to this live stream, there's a real possibility that that's not going to happen the week of my wedding or maybe even the week after. I have to find out. So just a little warning on schedule. We're going to be practicing from, the audio is a little crackly here. Okay, let me just adjust that and see what's happening. Thank you, Deb, for that. Let me try. Okay, we are back. Curious if folks are back and it's working well, if we have the same challenges. It's always a little bit of a funny world because it's a little hard to tell. And sometimes the video can be off and you have to sort of catch it up, that kind of thing. So the point of it all is that, welcome. We'll be practicing for about 25 minutes. Okay, good. The sound is working now. Excellent. So the sound is working now, and here we are having a good time. What, your wedding is more priority than the live stream? I know it is a little bit selfish. I have to really work on that. But it is a delight that I get to share the ongoing experience to that as it unfolds. And so we're going to be practicing for 25 minutes, and I'm counting the minutes in my hand. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it because it's fun. I'll just do this for the meditation. So the meditation is 25 minutes, and we're going to be practicing in relative stillness. And that means that we're allowed to move the body if we need to, but we also want to be sure that we don't move unnecessarily or be pulled by the instinct to move. So if you need to move, wait 30 seconds, a minute or so, and then feel free to move the body. Because we're continuing this practice around loving kindness, if this is a little bit confusing, don't worry. There are plenty of meditations that are in this series that you can check out. And it may be worth noting, I don't know if Darren mentioned this before, if you want to get a notification before we go live, I'm not sure, I think it comes in different forms, text message or that kind of thing. You hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then select all, which is all notifications whenever we go live, or you can select whatever you'd like. Okay, so finding a nice comfortable position. And when you're ready, just gently closing the eyes. Oh, before we jump into the practice, can anyone else let me know if my audio is still working? This is, if anyone isn't familiar with live streams, this is basically how it goes. I thought it was something particular to me, but I started watching some people who are doing pro live streaming, and it's just exactly the same. Okay, excellent. So the audio is here. So when you're ready, finding a nice comfortable position, and just gently closing the eyes. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. We'll begin by sweeping through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. Starting at the top of the head, relax the brow, relax the eyes. Allow the face to go smooth. Relax the tongue and let the jaw go slack. Relax the neck and the shoulders, the upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. Noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips and the upper legs. The knees and calves. The Achilles, the ankles, and relaxing the feet. And tuning into subtle sensations, relaxation throughout the whole body. The light quality of a body not needing to do anything. So beginning by tuning in to the fact that the body doesn't need to do anything. It doesn't need our intervention. And with this recognition, allowing the mind to stop observing, not needing to notice, not needing to make the mind still. Not needing to be anyone or do anything. Now we're going to engage with the tiniest bit of effort. Between 1 and 3% of our efforting capability. What we're going to effort is a being that's in front of us. It doesn't have to be clear, doesn't have to be sharp or detailed, just this subtle sense that there's a being in front of us that's so harmless, so deserving of kindness that it's simply drawing this loving kindness from us. And in the mind, you can very gently, with as little doing as possible, allow the phrase to continue throughout the practice. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. Not having the sense that the phrase is even coming from us. It doesn't have to come from the other being. Just not feeling a need to push anything out of ourselves. Simply feeling this wish being pulled from the body. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. Connecting with this peace. the equanimity and non-doing below all of the activity of the body-mind. And allowing the wish to be pulled from us. Now we're going to make a slight change, shifting this being, instead of being in front of us, being off to our right side, drawing this wish from us. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. And adding either another harmless being in front of us, as well as the being to our right. Or sometimes people will simply double this being as though there were two incarnations of it. Whatever is easier. Letting the experience be drawn from in front of you and towards the being in the right. Now adding another being or another manifestation of the same being to our left. Feeling this wish being pulled from us in three directions, trying not to add any extra doing. This can mean that the resolution on this being might go down, and that's fine. The resolution is less important than its ability to draw this wish out of us without need for our intervention. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. And being cautious of sliding into over-efforting. Rather than placing a fourth being behind us, just allowing this experience of the wish being pulled from us to begin to gently include all four directions. This can sometimes feel difficult or even disorienting, and that's okay. Noticing if this is an experience of non-peace, and not ignoring it or pushing it away, just looking for the neutrality below this. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. May you be peaceful. And letting go of any sense of any particular beings. Just letting this harmless quality that draws this wish from us surround us. It doesn't have to draw the wish intensely. This can cause fatigue, the sense that we have to produce a lot of the wish. Again, we're looking for the subtlest aspect of the wish. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness, allowing a little bit of light to enter the eyes, and eventually resting the eyes on one point as they fully open. And spending some time here with the eyes open, feeling this experience of the wish being pulled. Recalling that we don't need to do nearly anything. And if we have any momentum of this process, we might even be able to let go of the phrase, let go of the sense of pulling, and the system can simply continue the process on its own. Being a bit cautious of slipping into dullness. Simply paying attention to the vivid qualities of our experience. And taking a few moments to continue the practice, but allow the eyes to move, experiencing the world around you. Picking up on any momentum of the practice we've been doing. Noticing if it's affecting the way we feel about our environment. Even subtly the way our environment looks or even sounds. I'm beginning to tune into this. Okay. So what was that like? What happened and what do you like now? Let us know in the chat what your experience was. This is the last one in the metta series for often it'll be described as the benefactor, the beloved one, the person who it's very, very easy to direct metta towards. And we began to expand it outwards, so it was more of a to all beings experience. So, yeah, what was that like? What happened? And I thought as we begin here to get some reports rolling in, I thought we'd pull up this video. I watched this video recently. This is, it doesn't really get to how this is related to meditation until the end. It's a 4-minute video, and it's I think it's a PBS video, and what it's about is it's called A Case for Minimalism. I think it's referring to, okay, here we go. I'm trying to configure the screen capture here. It's referring to, where the heck is, how do I reconfigure this sucker? Oh, here we go. This is so strange. I'm not sure how to reset this sucker. Oh, there's a couple problems here. Okay, this is the same thing with this. Oh, I see. I see what you're doing here. Okay. So I'm just replacing this piece of software. I mean, this bit, so I can show this screen. Let's see here. Oh, that's just me. Okay, there's a little picture of me here. And the stream is back. Please let me know how much of that you lost. Hopefully everyone's okay and with us here. Let's see. Okay, we're just setting this up right now. No, not full screen. I want a section of the screen. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're just setting up this. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. Okay, here we go. Finally, we got him. Got him. But now it's giant. This is just comedy. Comedy galore. And this is a problem with the stream again. Okay, well, let me know if anyone's having any problem with the stream. There we go. Wonderful, wonderful. We're ready to roll. So I wanted to play Case for Minimalism, PBS documentary here. And yeah, okay, so let's see how this goes. We also have to test the audio as we usually do. Okay.
So you see a few cubes
that's
sitting.
pretty good audio. I'm going to listen in. So this is a case for minimalism. Okay, this is a case for minimalism.
So you see a few cubes sitting in an art gallery and you think to yourself, this is the greatest hoax that anyone has ever pulled off. You immediately walk away, discouraged by the wide gulf between what you hope for when you walk into a museum and what they've presented to you.
This is a very standard experience of people's critique, is that there's a sense of like, I could have done that, or this isn't visually pleasurable at all. And there's a way in which there's something good about that, because they're trying to draw attention often to what is not only absent from the piece, but also they're trying to create a contrast between that kind of artwork. So they'll talk about that in a moment.
How did we get here? How could these cubes that the artist didn't even make with their own hands be important? This is the case for minimalism. First off, we're not talking about minimalism as a general sensibility or the life-changing magic of tidying up. We're talking about the art of a particular moment in time, namely the 1960s, when all of a sudden there was a lot of geometric abstract art.
And there was this interesting argument going on where some people said that it was apolitical and some people said it was highly political. And it sort of came down on the idea that it was actually a very political form of artwork, which is very interesting because when you look at this, it doesn't look particularly political. I think most people would say it doesn't strike them as such. But there was something about, they're trying to break down hierarchy, which is a big theme in the 60s, and break down the idea that there was some high authority that was going to explain the artwork to you, and then you would have the depth of all that history and these kind of things. It was trying to give you something that didn't need explanation, but more than that, connected your experience with the present moment without any metaphor, breaking free of metaphor. And I talked about that a little bit I think last week we were talking about it not being a metaphor, but actually being an actual experience. So for me, this artwork was very important in my development because it was about experience much more than it was about any particular form or beautiful detail. The thing about this work, though, is that they say, okay, it's just this. It's not meant to be aesthetic, but they're very aesthetic. They're very beautiful, and we're used to this now because we could imagine this kind of painting being in a bank or someone's elegant modern home. This piece, just a little detail on this.
Some of it was painting by artists like.
So this is a Frank Stella painting, and the width of those lines is the exact width of the, I think, 2-inch brush that he bought from the hardware store, and the width of the canvas is also 2 inches. So the whole premise was the ordering structure is exactly there's no mystery of how it's made, and that was one of the big things with a lot of previous painters. There's always this mystery and this story of how did they do it? How did this genius make this thing? And there's also a critique on patriarchy, this idea that the genius artist was going to do something genius, and then when you have contact with it, it's going to connect you with the genius of the universe, and in that way making the artist a kind of god.
Frank Stella and Ellsworth Kelly, but most of it was sculpture by artists like Donald Judd, Carl Andre, Dan Flavin, Ann Truitt, Robert Morris, Tony Smith, Ronald Bladen, and Sol LeWitt. Art critics called it ABC art, object art, primary structures, and cool art, but the term minimalism prevailed. These artists never called their art minimalist, by the way, nor did they like the term, or the implication that the work was so reductive that it was minimally art. But minimalism was a rejection of what came before, specifically abstract expressionism, which
there was a big critique. I mean, again, I think it's the art in its time can be very revolutionary, and then the response to that can be, counter-revolutionary. And there was this critique, which I think is sort of, it fits really well. Jackson Pollock was this larger-than-life dude who was sort of it was kind of he seemed like the crazy dad, the sort of unstable dad figure. I believe, I don't know if this is how, he died, driving himself and I think 2 teenage girls into a tree drunk. And so it's he lived this life that was very chaotic, and there's sort of this very semi-sexual phallic thing of him whipping his paint splashes all over this, these canvases, which ultimately he was even saying was to some degree anti-aesthetic, because these are in response to artworks that are, supposed to be very kept and very, everything's contained. And so he moves it greater towards abstraction up to the surface of the canvas, and then the other artists are trying to pull it out of the surface of the canvas and put it into the regular world.
Dominated the art market in the 1950s. These new artists wanted to remove expression completely, remove emotion, empty the work of idiosyncratic gesture, make it resistant to biographical reading. Their hard-edged, basic shapes and forms avoided illusion, metaphor, and overt symbolism.
So part of the premise is also that it was so much of it became about the cult of the artist, like Jackson Pollock, he's so, magical and he's such a powerful being, etc., that they wanted to break that down, and they wanted it to be less about them in particular and more about the experience of what was happening. And that, for me, was very important in my development.
The forms were often repeated, one thing after another, in regular, non-hierarchical arrangements, rejecting compositional balancing. No artist hemming and hawing over the canvas here. The objects were impersonal, many of them machine-made, fabricated from new and industrial materials.
So just a quick note here. They're whipping through a lot of these very quickly, but each one is very, very carefully structured. And so this piece here, I don't know, can you see the mouse in the... Let me see if you can see the mouse in this image. Oh, you can see the mouse. Wonderful. Oh, there it is. Okay. So in this piece, you'll notice that this gap here, I can make a big mouse just for a second. So this gap here is the same as this positive shape here. And, they go exactly back and forth, so that this shape and this shape are the exact same size. This shape and this shape are the exact same size. And so there's a bit of mind math that happens, and this starts to get into this realm of conceptual sculpture, because in order to make this work, the mind is having to sort of do this work to notice the formal aspects of the way it relates to itself, and sort of creating a second copy and fitting it into itself. And that's in the realm of conceptual sculpture, where the art object is finished in the viewer's mind. It's sort of dipping into that territory just a tiny bit. So all these pieces are very carefully developed, and also they're very carefully often developed for the space that they're in. Some of these pieces could only exist within a certain place with a certain ceiling height, and all the dimensions would go off. Like the way that this is very carefully spaced, they would start to put these boxes in a room very carefully spaced, so that when you took these boxes out of this particular room, they lost their meaning, or they lost their formal interactive sort of shape and space. And what that meant is they were specific to this space. They weren't an object that you could take and put in this museum or that museum. It was this moment. So, especially when it gets to some of the pieces that were made of the light bulb pieces.
Sometimes this entailed ready-made units, like Andre's bricks or Flavin's fluorescent tubes.
So the really interesting thing about his fluorescent tubes, just imagine this for a moment. You go into an art museum or probably a gallery at this point. They definitely were not in museums in the early days. And his first piece, do I remember it correctly? Might have just been one, not first piece, but the first big piece might have been one vertical. No, actually the first piece was several vertical bulbs. I think they're 4 foot, and it was one bulb. Next to that was 2 bulbs, and next to that was 3 bulbs. And there is a narrative here, right? But the narrative is so simple that it's like delirious. It's just 1, 2, 3. And so you walk into this space and you see these light bulbs and you think, oh, well, this can't be the artwork. This is obviously something else. No artist would pull something off like this. This would be ridiculous. So you start to look around and you're like, where is the artwork? Is it hidden? Is it very small somewhere? And then at some point, maybe, ideally, you start to look and say, oh, like, is it the light coming off of the piece? And at that point, you're just in, phenomenology. You're just observing the physical experience of the body and mind, more so the visual sense, observing the experience of being in that particular place. And hopefully that would train you to take that meditative practice outside of the gallery in that way. So.
They didn't want you to ooh and ah or admire the handling of paint. As LeWitt once said, it is best that the basic unit be deliberately uninteresting.
Donald Judd, who's like the grandfather of this movement, has a quote where he says, a work doesn't have to be great, it just has to be interesting, which was like, what? What does that mean? The irony there is that these works were often really great. They're really important for the history of art. This piece in particular was very important to me. This is Robert Morris, and it's called Box for Standing, and it's just a photograph of it. Actually, I don't think the boxes exist anymore. But it shows that minimalism is actually very much dependent and shaped around the size and scale of the human body. And Morris was very big on this. He really emphasized and pointed out the fact that, something is big because it's bigger than the body. It's small because it's smaller than the body. It's sharp because it's sharper than the body. And so instead of it being this thing where there's a picture and you're just supposed to imagine yourself in this beautiful landscape or escape into, it was anti-escapist. I think that's actually a good way to describe it. And that form of anti-escapism points to the human body. Now, the critique that comes after that is it seems like unless you say which kind of body it is, you're pointing to the dominant body, which would be like a male body in this point in the 60s. So.
Morris wrote that he could hear a resounding no at the time. No to transcendence and spiritual values, heroic scale, anguished decisions, historicizing narrative, valuable artifact, intelligent structure, interesting visual experience. But what they were saying yes to was a new and startling realness.
And honestly, he says no to pleasant visual experiences. If I can take away the fact that I want to be delighted by artwork, and I do like pictures, and I like the sort of atmospherics of Jackson Pollock paintings, this piece right here, Robert Morris piece, a very famous early minimalist piece, is very interesting. Is this a bench? Is it a thing? Like looking at the shapes, the way they interact with each other, the way they interact with the room. Is this just a piece of architecture? And it's hard to take our minds back to this place, this fragility of this moment when people, it's the 60s and people are used to seeing pop art maybe and these kind of things, both of which, pop art and minimalism, took the industrial production of art and put that into the art making process. So they both have that quality to them. But this is, to me, is like really fascinating work, especially because it points to the body by rejecting the body. It points to, look, this is pointing to this body that shapes the forms, and it's tall because it's taller than you and that kind of thing. And So the viewer becomes an integral part of the piece. If there's a lot of people in the room, the piece is completely different. It's also interesting that this is just the same shape repeated, and it really does feel different every time.
Abandoning the pedestal to dismantle the separation between you and the art. Judd claimed these works are neither painting nor sculpture, but instead specific objects occupying real space. These objects aren't pointing to anything or referencing anything.
I like that idea that they're specific objects in space. They're not some other thing. It's not a picture of something. It's not something that takes you somewhere else. Even this tapestry that I made behind me, there's something about it that is transcendent. And for me, it seems actually very transcendent to really point to non-transcendence, especially if you understand the Buddhist side of it and the sort of form is emptiness and emptiness is form. It's almost that before this, no one had ever shown us form. And the emptiness of that is that it sort of produces, in this context of art, produces all this other stuff. It gets you to suddenly see, hey, wait, these are in these four walls. Who owns these walls? And institutional critique comes out of that too.
Andre called his work a kind of plastic poetry, in which elements are combined to produce space.
It's hard to go back one frame, but so just to this, all of Andre's work was never glued together, never adhered, because he felt that was like dishonest and went against the nature of the material. So all of them are stacks. You saw the stacks of bricks earlier, but they're just stacks. And so he would allow people to interact with them. So, people would come and touch the works and interact with them in a non-magical way. And still now, I think in MoMA, they have a big piece. I think it's like, let's say 10 by 10, these sort of they're steel squares, and you can just walk on top of it. And it's, when no one knows it, often people are in the museum and they don't know, and you just walk straight across it, you can hear the room like do a little gasp. It's sort of funny.
So there is no illusion of space. It just is space.
And that thing of it just is space, this for me, I realized later, this was where I was practicing making artwork as my meditation practice and trying to guide other people to that experience, which is still something I do today.
Minimalism had its haters from the start. In 1967, art critic Michael Fried attacked the work for being theatrical. For him, it was an object in a room that had presence before a viewer, but it did not have what good art has, which is presentness.
And this early essay by Michael Friedman actually helped totally make minimalism really famous, because he proved in a very clear theoretical way that what this artwork has is time. And it actually has real time. It's not a theoretical time. It's not like a moment of like some blissful moment in a park with people, like a Monet painting. That sort of timeless time. It has real present moment time, and a lot of these things will relate to decay and that kind of thing. Some of the later work, and he's like, and that is bad. It's theatrical, but actually it made everyone realize, like, wow, this is actually theoretically more layered than we even thought. So it actually expanded minimalism pretty dramatically, that particular essay.
Or an instant of aesthetic experience which occurs in no real space or time at all. But Fried really just ended up affirming exactly what the artists were trying to do, proving how radical it really was. Despite its detractors, minimalism became all the rage.
So just a note here, I don't even know this artist's name, but it's fascinating. Like, there's a sheet of glass between these two spindles, one spindle small, one spindle's big, and it's perfectly stable because it's touching at this tiny point and this tiny point and then this flat point here. And it's a lot of this work is very about physical interactions. And later work, maybe we talked a little bit about Sarah before. Maybe we'll talk about him again. Oh, we did. We talked about his lean pieces. They come out of this because he really wanted to show that everything was very contingent, leaning on each other, created for that moment. And then when the leaning ends, the piece ends.
This geometric, unadorned style flowed throughout the worlds of fashion, theater, and design. In short, it was cool. And then because these artists were never trying to be minimalist to begin with, they moved on to other things.
So here's some examples. This is Robert Morris. These are called process pieces. And so the goal of these pieces, they start to be aesthetically much more beautiful. And these are sheets of felt, and they just are meant to show the production of the artwork in large part. This is how this piece was made. So this piece here in the back a little bit, it's clear that they took 2 rows of this felt fabric and pinned the corners here and pinned the corners there, and then let this one fall open, and it made this shape on its own. This one, it's pretty clear, and it's also, this is pretty like, has a very like, we'll say a feminine vibe, has a very like not geography, what's a biological, feminine biological vibe. He just grabbed this sheet of material and lifted it up, and it stood up on its own in this way. So.
And other kinds of art had its day.
Oh, and this is Eva Hess, or Hessa, some people call, who
and other kinds of
who did these really beautiful pieces that were just hanging in the air, like these sort of like Jackson Pollock in the air, but it was all like rope and resins and this kind of thing. She actually died very early because she was one of the first deaths from resins, because people didn't know that resins were extremely toxic.
Of art had its day. But minimalism changed things. For centuries, art had been trying to trick you, convince you that the hunk of rock was something other than a hunk of rock. But not this. You feel like there's gotta be some secret to it, but there isn't. There's nothing to interpret. This is what it is.
I think it's a little weird to say there's nothing to interpret, but we'll let that slide.
It wasn't supposed to look like art of the past, and it wasn't supposed to function like it either. With minimalism, meaning doesn't rest inside the object, waiting to be unlocked. The meaning is in the context and exists in your interaction with it.
And that's a description of meditation. The meaning exists with your interaction with the world. Any meaning is created in a contingent way in your interaction with the universe. And I was drawn to this work because of my relationship to Zen. That's really was pretty central for me personally. So yeah.
But minimalism is a resistant lover. It's just not that into you. It encourages observation but doesn't draw you in. And it was never trying to. Remember, these objects were supposed to be emptied of pretension, of
that was the piece that you're allowed to walk on at MoMA.
Mastery, of the usual seduction between art and viewer, and of the grand, glorious traditions that preceded them. But the fetishization and commodification of minimalist art has complicated and polluted these ideas. What's less real than million-dollar plywood boxes? And yet, for me at least, minimalist art can still impart a strong feeling, a feeling for space.
Yeah, they're very spatial, they're very beautiful and open, and they can be very emotional.
Light, for presence, absence. You're aware of your own body in the gallery as you've never been before. You notice that your position in the room shapes your perception of the thing.
I do think it's a little funny when people say, you notice this, it's like, you might notice that, but.
You appreciate the architecture and the spareness.
You appreciate the architecture, it's a little fascistic for my taste.
And in a world filled with complexity and information and lots of stuff, this is a balm. This is a world more simplified than the actual world is. And that I can appreciate.
Oh, that's very sweet. Folks, we have a little bit of a funny situation here. Rakhel has a private student. We overlapped in a way that I did not expect that we would. I can't read all your wonderful comments. I have to jump off. Rakhel has a person right now. Maybe they'll be late. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to read comments and respond until Rakhel waves at me, and then I have to cut the stream very quickly. This is a scheduling thing. We thought it wasn't going to happen, but it is happening. So let's see. I'm sorry that I am not. I don't have a ton of time to read all these wonderful comments. And actually, oh no, I think I have to stop. I can't even stay after and chat. You guys can actually. This might be a great opportunity if you want to stay after and. If you want to stay after and chat with each other, maybe answer some of these questions and go over these things like I do with you, that would be lovely. And let's see here. Let's see. I'm a minimalist. I have thought I have enough clutter in my mind to deal with it. Exactly. My sit was calm. My noisy environment today made it hard to stay with the instruction. Almost sense that I have no strong curiosity for metta yet. No strong curiosity. Still new to it. Yeah, that could be the case. And it's just to allow yourself to be curious just for a moment. Stream collapsed for me when you started the video. Art assignment stuff can be good. Okay, I gotta go, folks. Okay, I'm gonna try to whisper. It's like fancy. I wonder if you guys can hear me. I can see from the meters if you can hear me. This is sort of weirdly intimate. Okay, I think I'm audible. Okay, I realize I have to go because you could hear her client, which is a no-no. So, okay, I'm going to go, guys. Love you. See you soon. There's no co-host today for obvious reasons, and we look forward to seeing everyone soon. Okay, folks. Bye. See you soon. See you soon.